How is everyone feeling about Donald Trump officially being under arrest? That guy from Home Alone 2, wow, just goes to show ya really never can tell. I was 12 when Home Alone 2 came out 1992. It was the first time that I saw Trump and I instantly knew he was a bad man. He has proved me right for the last 30 years. I will never understand how anyone could be so blind to see this man for anything more than a crook and a charlatan. I'm cautiously optimistic that justice will come for Trump. I've been hurt before. Oh, come on, baby, we live in a country where rule of law matters and actions have consequences. Never again am I trusting my heart to Lady Justice. I'm seeing more and more signs of the justice system catching up. In Australia, at least, there has been an increase in white-collar crime being charged and big businesses facing consequences. Sure, there's a long way to go, but it's nice to see there are small steps occurring in the right direction. I'm against Donald Trump being indicted because it sets all the wrong examples of what law is supposed to be. Justice is supposed to be blind, and Donald Trump was indicted largely because of political reasons from Democrats. Campaign finance laws were traditionally not criminalized. Law is supposed to be reasonable, which means that minor crimes aren't supposed to be upcharged to felonies just because the DA wants to make a point and improve his track record and career. A lot of Americans think that DAs are reasonable people. In reality, a lot of DAs are sociopaths who only care about getting convictions and improving their score of convictions. There are DAs out there who have God complexes and view themselves as a divine being. I think indicting Donald Trump can lead to a lot of distrust in the legal system from the American people. Half of us are Republicans, and they aren't all that happy about Trump being indicted. Great, now let's start going after all politicians and other government officials. John Edwards was prosecuted in quite a similar setup. He paid somebody off to keep a scandal from coming out. He was found innocent because the prosecution couldn't prove that the payment was done for his campaign rather than to protect his personal reputation. Trump presumably can't run that defense because he tried to stiff one of the women out of her payment by stalling until after the election, at which point he said it wouldn't matter. Generally, politicians are actually pretty careful not to commit crimes, or if they do, then to commit them in ways that can't be proved. My problem isn't the actual crime, it's what they get away with that is legal. Personally, I think we should give Congress a raise and 1 year of salary and insurance for every 4 years served, and forbid them from them or their spouses from ever lobbying, or trading stock while in office and 6 months after, or working at anything for pay or stock for 1 year for every 4 years they served. Sure, it sounds expensive, but long term it would save us a lot of money in the long term. The man is a real-life, in-your-face fascist authoritarian who came within a hair's breadth of installing himself as the dictator of the most powerful nation to ever form on the planet. Him and Jared Kushner committed politicide, a form of genocide against Democrats via COVID while running on a political platform of locking up his political opponents for no reason, and who likely got dozens or potentially hundreds of American intelligence agents ed. And the top comment here is a joke about a movie. And you're annoyed? Jesus Christ, the level of privilege to be able to just forget this fascist as he's actively working against democracy is insane. Americans are pathetic. This is just too much. Honest question, do people really excited to see him charged? One argument is that these charges are kind of low level, where they had to use legal trickery, which may not even stick because it's a federal thing to justify the felony charges. And others who say the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and politicians are given a pass on things like this all the time. Hypothetically, imagine if this ends up winning him the election. That people find it not a big deal, it backfires, gets him tons of support, and he wins 4 more years. Would it still be worth it just to say Trump wasn't above the law? That if holding him accountable for any crime is worth it for the ability to take the high ground, even if it leads to 4 more years? I just wish more people understood that he's being charged for things that he did before he became president, for using campaign money as his own piggy bank, something politicians are frequently accused of, but rarely seem to be held accountable for. Of course, I don't expect anyone to change their opinion of the man or their potential vote. That ship has long sailed. We have better information now, and I was wrong. Per the indictments, the hush money payments continued through 2017. I thought all the stuff with Cohen's trial happened before then. Apparently, covering up evidence of a crime as a business expense is frowned upon. The charge isn't for using campaign funds. The problem is if you use money to pay for something for the benefit of your campaign, it has to be accounted for, and if it wasn't accounted for, that's a campaign finance violation. Let's wait and see what all the other charges are, but that specific charge likely won't lead to anything more than a fine. It kind of blows my mind how stubborn people are. To me, he really wasn't ever a serious candidate. He was a celebrity, not a politician. To be honest, I only had really ever seen him on a CC roast. I just knew he was some rich New Yorker. I didn't know how ed up he was, and when H1 I was shocked but heard people out who had promising things to say. And for a short time I thought maybe he will do something uniquely profound. It didn't take too long for me to realize he's actually a complete piece of. Just listening to him talk, I mean, how do you think? That's my president. My opinion changed then. It wasn't hard to find credible information of the guy and get a fuller picture of what he is. Is it all really just wealth and racism propping this guy up? I simply cannot imagine what is going through people's heads to think that guy is fit to run a country, even after everything they've seen. There is a serious problem of delusion in this country. It's dystopian level. I couldn't care less about this one. What I would like to see him get arrested for is the phone call he made to GA officials telling them to find him votes. Trump has committed far more egregious and illegal acts, and paying off Stormy Daniels seems like such a minor offense. But when you consider the timing of the payoff and how close the election was, he very likely would have lost the election if the news had come out at the time. So this stupid crime had a huge impact. I really hope this is just the first round of indictments. I'd love to see him serve some serious jail time for the GA phone call, as well as his incitement of the January 6th insurrection. The man is utter garbage, and his supporters are fools. I want Jared and Ivanka investigated, and if there's evidence, arrested for espionage, treason. The Kushners earned $2 billion from the Saudis while Trump was in office. Prior to this, Jared was a famous failure with a $1 billion debt on 666 Park Avenue and no prospects for paying it off. After the Israelis reported intelligence leaks from our side and stopped sharing top-tier info, we find out Jared received top-secret clearance from Trump after being turned down by the normal vetting channels. If we were talking about Chelsea Clinton and her husband, they'd already be in jail. I would certainly like to see him prosecuted, convicted, and jailed for something other than a bribe to a star. However, I'll take what I can get. Just like Al Capone should have been convicted on more serious crimes than tax evasion, in the end jail is jail. I have no illusions of him sharing a cell with someone named Big Bubba though. It'll be a campus that just happens to have a fence around it, and Secret Service to make sure he's safe. That'll be interesting, how they work out his Secret Service coverage. I think this will be a starting point, and they've gone with this because there is a clear paper trail from Trump himself. I remember this all happening in real time. When it came out, he was in the position that it was either him personally paying a star, which would have been fraud as he used campaign funds, or it's campaign finance violations because he paid a star with campaign money and didn't report it when the deadline came, last chance before the election, and thus something that could harm his presidency if he won. He chose the campaign finance violation and recorded it officially, thus making a paper trail. He was ed either way and thought it would end with a slap on the wrist at worst, which is less than what he got for a long while. Now, however, it's come back to bite him, but make no mistake, he created the ledger entries which are now the cause of his charges, all because he didn't want the secret of him hiring a star coming out before an election. It seems that the current main talking point in conservative media is if they are allowed to go after him, they're going to come after you next. Was I allowed to commit crimes freely before today? I sure hope they come after anyone breaking the law just the same. If Trump's held accountable, that means they could go after literally anyone who pays hush money to cover up their extramarital affair while running for president, then tries to claim back that payment as a fraudulent campaign expense. Next thing you know, they'll be telling us it's illegal to rob banks or something. They seem to assume that their audience members each possess a list of undisclosed crimes that they could be arrested for. Or is it that the people uttering this threat have their own secret crimes? Tax cheating? Business write-offs? Doesn't apply to me or anyone in my circle. I obey the law and uphold the rule of law. That is the only thing keeping us from barbarism and a dictatorship. Police brutality and racist laws are definite issues which need correction. What I like is the counter-argument about Hunter Biden whatevers. Like brew, if he also is breaking the law, arrest him too idgaff. None of us have a cult-like relation to any politician the way these Trump supporters do. It's 'cause they think it's a game. They literally think we're just trying to gain an advantage in the game, so they threaten to erase that gain with another action to make it even again. It's all about winning and showing the other side is cheating, so they have justification to do what they are accusing them of. This has nothing to do about doing what they think is best for the country, but winning to force what they believe is best for the country at all costs. Here's the thing about why I've come to have serious doubts about the Hunter Biden case. Note, I'm not completely writing it off due to my personal belief that every man and woman who has ever had a career in DC is dirty in one form or another. Supposedly everything revolves around the laptop, which has been proclaimed by the right wing to have been in the hands of multiple high-profile members of said right wing, Rudy, Jared, Hannity, and the MyPillow guy, who each claim to have viewed the contents and thus witnessed evidence of Hunter's crimes. And now they're all supposedly playing hot potato with it to keep it from being seized by the feds to be given to whichever Republican they intend to become the next president. Here's the thing, even if all of that is true, they've also ruined their latchkey to the case against Hunter, as none of it would be admissible in court because there would be no way to tell what is Hunter's data and what could have been planted by any of the previous holders. My family can't really wrap their head around this. To them, opposing Trump means I must love Biden. I don't. I very much, extremely don't. I've explained it to them and they just can't compute. To them, I must actively endorse and support a candidate, and that's the only way to vote for them. I dislike him and everything he stands for because he's a selfish politician who has repeatedly sacrificed the public good for the benefit of the wealthy. The fact that he's pro-choice, supports gay marriage, etc. is the baseline for me. Anything less and I'd just shrug and not vote on Election Day because there'd be no difference between him and Trump. That's not a virtue Biden has, it's just the lack of a flaw. He's a war criminal and a monster. Lock him and Trump up in the same cell, along with most of Congress and a few 100,000 other people, and maybe we can start to salvage our nation. Ha ha ha, that's the best. This dumbass cult thinks we don't want to prosecute our side. Nah fam, burn them all. If you're committing a crime, red or blue, get Ed. No one is above the law. If it comes out that Biden is laundering money and using his son to cover up the fact that they created Cocaine Bear, impeach him. I don't care. The law is the law. These wackos can't possibly fathom that we want anyone and everyone who commits criminal acts to be treated like criminals. Of course, they don't listen and swing the goalposts far enough to create some other wild conspiracy to fuel their whataboutism. Republicans are by far and away the worst offenders of politicizing criminal investigations. Hillary, the biggest example. 8 years and 30 investigations led entirely by Republicans cleared her of any illegal activity, but certainly showed wrongdoing or unethical behavior, just not on the grand scale Fox News would have you believe, and it was almost entirely common procedural issues and dishonesty. And even still, I'd completely be okay with her being in trouble, though I'd bemoan if it only happened for political purposes. Can't stand the guy, but it's embarrassing and pathetic that our governmental institutions let this get this far out of hand. The guardrails seem flimsy, but now it's obvious that they always were. It's imperative that we develop some sort of reforms to avoid this circus from ever happening again. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time before someone far worse gains the full might and power of the presidency. The guardrails in a democracy are always flimsy. It requires that the participants are willing to play within the basic set of norms and rules. The problem with Trump is exactly that. He has never thought about his responsibility to be a caretaker of democracy. Pretty much anyone, at any time, could have decided to claim election fraud and set the system on fire. We have been very fortunate that it hadn't happened, and the few times people had tried, they were largely kept in check by their own party. It's a case study for the status quo. Nixon was pardoned because at the end of the day, he played the role the way he was intended to do. Trump was a wild card and one that did not play nicely and disturbed the status quo enough that they are willing to weaponize any means, scorched earth tactics to prevent his running again. It may be for the best, but only this time? What does this say about the consolidation of power and control in DC? Can this be used to prevent any unwanted individuals from running? Is anyone truly spotless at that level of government legally? Does this mean that not just anyone can become president anymore? Was that ever the case in the first place? I find it far more concerning that asking these questions and making these observations is enough to be considered some sort of groupthink traitor rather than having the healthy skepticism to see a path to worsening corruption playing out in front of us in real time. One that says if you commit crimes for us, it's not criminal because we own the court and will use it if you disobey. We never like to acknowledge this in America, but this is not a system problem. This is a voter problem. I don't know of any reforms that will prevent violent mobs from being dangerous or prevent those mobs from casting their vote for dangerous and unqualified people. You can't legislate culture, and that is the root cause of all of these problems. Our systems performed pretty well during the 2020 election. It was American voters who stormed the Capitol and smeared on the walls. The founders had this idea that free speech and free press would lead to an informed voting populace that would identify obvious frauds like Trump and not vote for them. And in the rare event they got duped, they'd demand Congress to remove the fraud using their impeachment power, and Congress would do so because their constituents demand it. So yeah, the founders did not foresee just how bad disinformation and tribalism would get and the consequences of that. The justice system was meant to not be super powerful when it came to prosecuting politicians because they thought voters would keep politicians honest first and foremost. Empowering the justice system to prosecute any politicians with no restrictions creates a huge opportunity for abuse, since someone will inevitably use that power against their enemies. But it's also the only guardrail we have left, since the voting populace has completely failed to keep their politicians honest on that side of the aisle. I just want him to go away, not die, just go the away. No more interviews or rallies. No more MAGA incels and hillbillies. Just go the away. I want him to suffer the full consequences of what his actions have wrought. If it wasn't for him, Abbott, DeSantis, Cruz, Green, politicians from other countries, religious fanatics, and all these others would have never got it in their head or the confidence to even do the things that they are today, and we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in now. It's a disappointing day when a former president gets arrested for any reason. But we are at a point in this country politically where we have to show the people that no one is above the law. I don't know if any of this is going to stick. This seems relatively low bar to chase, but it's not. What you know, it's what you can prove in court. We'll see. As a native New Yorker, I've perceived him as a great con artist for decades before he ran for office. Part of me is glad he is finally getting his comeuppance. Another part is deeply saddened by the stain this will leave on the presidential office and whether this will be looked back on similar to Nixon and Watergate. I worry about how this will further divide the country. I still can't wrap my head around how we got to the point where Trump and Biden are our primary options for leadership in this country. I am not a Trump supporter by any means, nor am I a Biden supporter, so here's my third-party opinion. If you take a shot at the king, you best not miss. By that I mean Trump has a huge base of fanatic supporters, so the DA needs to make sure he can score a conviction. If he doesn't, and somehow Trump walks away from this, then it's going to motivate his base when he decides to run again. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to pretend to be one, so I'm hoping the DA has an airtight case and doesn't this up. It doesn't matter to me what party or part of or position you held, you are not above the law. But as a counterpoint, sometimes backfires, and I'm hoping we as a nation don't get hit with the unintended consequences. As a not American, seeing that guy or hearing that guy literally never again would be the most preferable outcome. I hate the American circus of politics, and it was the loudest when that fat, stupid idiot of a man was in charge. He brings out the worst in huge swaths of people and is an incredibly vapid and horrible individual, irrespective of any kind of political leanings. The fastest path to, and he was never heard from again, is probably the best one. This might be that, so hopefully it's a slam dunk. Innocent until proven guilty. That said, any politician who commits a crime should be held accountable, that's all. He was the first president to be impeached twice, including for inciting an insurrection. He also had 8 key advisors and associates convicted and arrested already. His own staff have repeatedly said he wanted to join the Capitol riot, and he has accidentally admitted to crimes repeatedly on film and TV. We're pretty far past the innocent until proven otherwise phase. Whether he will lose the trial, we don't know, but the dude is guilty. Reddit makes it seem like a slam dunk, but a couple of reasonably large liberal news outlets, Economist and one other, have cited they don't think this is a good case to prosecute and gave examples of cases they thought were stronger. This makes me think this is more of a political move, but I could be wrong. I'll get downvoted, but the same people that make fun of the MAGA folk for being upset are just as bad being overinvested in a case that will make no difference on your day-to-day. Didn't get a mugshot taken, didn't get handcuffed, didn't get placed in a holding cell, didn't have to wait for his court appearance. He went into an office, had the charges read to him, stated his plea, then got released, free to fly back to Florida for his fundraising rally that night, where he raged against the families of the judge and then got to sleep in his own bed. Should be treated like anyone else. It's bull. My whole thing is everyone freaking out, lock him up or he's getting locked up. We don't know the exact charges yet, but this all stems from potentially paying hush money to Stormy Daniels with campaign money. Literally a white-collar crime. At worst, this is going to be a slap on the wrist. Nothing's going to change. Yet everything acting like he's facing the death penalty. Just reading these comments shows that no one actually knows what he's being charged with. 34 felony charges. I'm actually amazed at that. There is zero chance he will spend any time behind bars on these charges. This will only make him look bad to the people who don't worship him. The cases that will really matter are the ones regarding his attempt to subvert an election and holding on to top secret records, which he pretty much admitted that he kept for profit. I am not even convinced he will be convicted for January 6th either. I don't care which of these stick, as long as at least one of them does, and it comes with real jail time. Am I glad that he's finally facing justice? Yes. Do I think this is going to change anything? No. The cat is out of the bag. It's now an acceptable political platform to offer no solutions and just simply hate on those who are different from you. Trump may be arrested and prohibited from holding office again, but there are plenty who are taking Trump's playbook and molding it into something less crazy and more palatable for centrists. See DeSantis, Abbott, etc. My folks voted for Trump but had no doubts he lost in 2020. Nowadays, they're cheering over DeSantis. Don't say gay, Bill. The damage has been done to America already. The Republican Party's motto is, "We won't make your life better, but we will make it hell for people who don't look like you." The whole thing is stupid. Anyone else would already be under the jail, and the GOP want to prosecute Hunter Biden right now because they merely suspect Hunter did what Trump is now indicted for, falsifying business records. Then you talk to the supporters and they either don't care about these charges, think they are made up, or politically motivated, as if that makes the crimes any less illegal. Trump has a long history of getting away with crimes simply by court stalling. He has so many lawsuits against him now that even if we did one per day, he'd die before they were done. And still supporters think this con man is completely innocent. They won't even believe you when you show them video of Trump saying things anymore. It is a level of stupid delusion I wouldn't expect in even the most devout cults.